Hello again, Raiders. Welcome back to the second update preview video dedicated to the Cursed City feature. If you've watched the first one, you'll know all about this huge new feature we've got. If you've not, what are you waiting for? Go watch it. Link is in the description below. This time around, we'll be talking strategy, giving you the knowledge and tools you'll need to storm the Eclipse Tower and defeat Amius the Lunar Archon. First things first, this is a straight showdown between your team and Amius. No waves of enemies, no pesky minions to deal with. Just you and Amius at the top of the Eclipse Tower. Here's the bad news. That won't make this fight any easier. Amius the Lunar Archon is the first boss in Raid to have two forms, just like mythical champions. Each one has its own strengths and weaknesses. And his transformation is tied to a new unique buff that he can place on himself. More on that later. Defeating the boss means fighting in both of his forms, so let's dive into both his skill sets and everything Amius is going to throw at you. Amius will always start the fight in his base form, which is focused on healing over damage. His first skill, Waxing Potence, may sound simple, but it can be pretty effective. Amius will attack everyone on your team once, but he'll increase the damage inflicted by 10% for each buff he's currently under. He'll also heal himself by 100% of the damage he deals with this skill, including damage done against shields, and any excessive damage if this attack breaks a shield. Pretty crazy, right? If you thought that was bad, it gets worse with Amius' second skill, Lunar Storm. He'll attack everyone on your team once, but there's more going on here. Before he lashes out, Amius will increase the duration of his buffs by 1 turn, and heal himself by 20% plus an extra 5% for each buff that has its duration increased. But wait, it gets even better for Amius. He'll also decrease the duration of all debuffs on himself by 1 turn, and fill his own turn meter by 10% for each debuff that had its duration decreased. And that's just his second skill. Amius' third skill, Rampant Chaos, is a real game changer. Hold on to your hats, folks. Amius will remove all debuffs from himself and replace them with their mirrored buff equivalent for 3 turns. Yup, it's as bad as it sounds. Let's say you've put out a 50% decrease attack and a 25% weaken debuff on Amius. When he uses this skill, they'll get removed and replaced with a 50% increase attack buff and a 25% strengthen buff. You can see the full list of debuffs and their mirrored equivalents on the screen now to see just how powerful this skill is. Now, I know what you're thinking, it can't get worse than that. Oh yes, it really can. After replacing all of his debuffs for buffs, Amius will then place a stun debuff on any non-mythical champions on your team. Mythical champions won't get away unscathed though. Amius will force them to change forms. Finally, oh yeah, there's more. Amius will also increase his turn meter by 10% for each debuff that's converted into a buff. No time to rest though. Amius' fourth skill is Robed in Moonlight. This passive increases the effectiveness of Amius' self-healing. Every time he deals damage to an enemy that has his shield buff on them, Amius will heal by 100% of the damage done. If he manages to break through the shield, the heal will be equal to the full value of the shield, but it won't count any excessive damage on top. Amius isn't content to stop there. He'll also heal himself by 25% of any heals that your team put out. We're talking skill-based heals, continuous heal buffs, and artifact sets like Lifesteal and Bloodthirst. The only 2 methods of healing that won't affect this passive skill are equalizing HP and swapping HP with the target. Amius is immune to both of these, but they will still affect your team. The last part of this passive lets Amius decrease the cooldown of his next passive skill whenever one of your champions also decreases a cooldown. There aren't any rules here either. You could decrease a cooldown with an artifact set, skill, or mastery. Let's find out exactly why this is really bad news for your team. With his second passive skill, Archon's Ascendance, Amius will place an Eclipse buff on himself for 3 turns. It's fully protected, meaning you can't steal or remove it or decrease its duration. Nope, it's here to stay. When Amius is under an Eclipse buff, he'll transform into his alternate form. If his base form was all about healing and sustainability, Amius' alternate form is all about the damage. What's really important to remember here is that when Amius is under an Eclipse buff and in his alternate form, killing him won't end the fight. Instead, Amius will revive himself in his base form with 30% HP and 50% turn meter. We'll get into the alternate form skills in just a moment, but first, some good news. This passive will start on a 4-turn cooldown at the start of the fight with Amius, so you've got some time to prepare. For now though, let's jump into what the alternate form is going to throw at you. Amius' first skill in his alternate form is Abyssal Construct. He'll attack one target 2 times, and he'll increase the damage by 20% for each debuff on the target. Ouch. Amius will also ignore 100% of the target's defense, and he'll activate his third skill if this attack kills its target. Double ouch. And yeah, we'll talk about that third skill later, but don't despair just yet. That ignore defense effect can be mitigated if the target champion is awakened. The level of mitigation depends on the level of awakening, and you can see the numbers on screen now. Moving on, Amius' second skill is Bloodmoon Vortex. First up, he'll increase the duration of every debuff on your team by 1 turn. As if that wasn't bad enough, he'll then decrease each champion's turn meter by 10% for each debuff that has its duration increased. Let me offer you a glimmer of hope here though. That turn meter decrease can be mitigated in the same way that the damage from Abyssal Construct can, with awakened champions. We'll put the numbers on screen now. Amius isn't done. He'll then decrease the duration of all your buffs and smack your entire team for good measure. What's worse is that for every buff affected, the damage will increase by 5% of each target's max HP, up to a maximum of 50%. Oh yeah, Amius hits hard. Amius' third skill is Maniacal Bedlam, and this works pretty similar to his third skill from his base form. Remember how it replaced his debuffs with their mirrored buff equivalent? Well, this time Amius is removing your buffs and replacing them with their mirrored debuff equivalent. He'll also place a sleep debuff on all non-mythical champions and force mythical champions to change form again. That sleep debuff, by the way, can't be resisted. For every buff that's converted into a debuff this way, Amius also gains 10% turn meter to help him smack your team again. Remember that first skill, Abyssal Construct? If Amius kills an enemy with that skill, then he'll immediately activate this one. So bring plenty of protection. We're nearly there, folks. Amius' passive skill in his alternate form is Scarlet Eclipse, and it really makes the most of that Eclipse buff he's got. First, Amius will have the value of any heals that your champions receive. That alone would be bad, but he'll also ignore shield, block damage, and unkillable buffs when he attacks. He's bringing the pain. Oh, and did I mention that if any of your champions decrease a skill's cooldown in any way, Amius will lash out at a random enemy with Abyssal Construct? Okay, we've had a ton of bad news, so let's have some good news, right? Thanks to the Awaken Weakness passive skill, Amius will deal less damage to awakened champions and receive more damage from awakened champions according to how many awakened levels they have. We'll put the numbers up on the screen for how much that'll impact your fight. Awakened champions are going to be super helpful in this fight, but you can't rely on them alone. Let's dive into some other strategies to help you conquer this moon-obsessed menace. So, let's start with tactics to take on Amius in his base form. He's got a strong focus on healing and countering debuffs. You'll either need to put out loads of damage quickly or time your heal reduction debuffs to ensure he won't just replace them with continuous heal buffs. Be careful though, just because he's in his base form doesn't mean his attacks won't seriously damage your team without proper protection. Remember, his third skill in both forms can either stun or sleep your champions and force any mythical champions to change form. That stun debuff from the base form's third skill can be resisted or blocked, so be sure to bring champions with high resistance, or a champion who can place block debuffs. Buffs. Anyway, when Amius gets his Eclipse buff and transforms into his alternate form, that's when he really kicks off. Ignoring shield, block damage, and unkillable buffs means he's ready to tear through your team like tissue paper. The key thing here is mitigating Amius' damage, and there's 2 ways to do that: debuffs and awakened champions. Since Maniacal Bedlam is focused on removing your buffs and replacing them with debuffs, Amius is susceptible to decrease attack. The other very important thing to remember is that Amius will revive himself when he's killed in his alternate form. Champions with block revive debuffs like Rhodos or Foley are the perfect foil to Amius' alternate form. Just keep restrictions in mind. You might not be able to bring the same champion along in the next rotation. Lastly, remember that debuffs such as Poison and HP Burn don't have a mirrored buff equivalent. If you can keep them on Amius, they'll help to balance out the healing he receives across both of Amius' forms. Timing is everything. Play your debuffs too early, and Amius will just replace them with buffs to make himself stronger. Play them too late, and your team may not be around to take full advantage. Build a team with incredibly high damage and block revive debuffs, or prepare for a war of attrition. And that's everything we've got for you this time around. What a monster of a boss, right? We're excited to see what tactics you come up with for taking on Amius the Lunar Archon and cleansing the cursed city of evil. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for all things Raid. See you next time.